Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Houston, we are ready for the event.
New York Police Department, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Please call station for a voice check. Station, this is the New York City Police Department. How do you hear me?
I've got you loud and clear. Welcome to the International Space Station.
Hello, my name is Brianna. My first question is, with the recent announcement that NASA will be landing the first woman on the moon in 2024, how do you see this impacting girls and women around the globe?
Hello, thank you for the question. I see it as impacting by one major way, and I hope that it is inspiring for all people around the globe. You know, 50 years ago, when we first landed on the moon, not only were the astronauts not featuring women, but also you didn't see women too much in the mission control room. And that's all going to be different this next time around. We're going to have women contributing and being recognized for those contributions in mission control, as the engineers that designed the rockets and the spacecraft, and indeed as the astronauts making the boot prints on the moon. I'm glad that NASA and other programs have recognized that the way that we can be most successful in human spaceflight and in any endeavor that we take on is to incorporate the contributions and the ideas and the talents of all Americans. And I'm glad that every person that dreams of exploring now is going to have a chance to see that dream fulfilled.
Thank you. My second question is, who or what inspired you to become an astronaut?
So we all draw our inspirations from different sources. I think with me, it started out with just a real interest in space, and then a desire to figure out how to turn that into something. And you know, I'm active duty Air Force, and for me, it was I wanted to be part of something larger and to try to help out, you know, the country, to help out the world. And so this is a natural extension of that. And so it wasn't one particular person that necessarily inspired me, but many examples throughout my life of people that had dedicated their lives to helping the others around them. And I think that if you look around yourself, you can see examples of that every day, whether it's the policemen or firemen that are there protecting and serving those communities around them. There's examples of that all over. So you can find inspiration around you everywhere.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Chelsea, and my question is, has NASA made any strides in colonization of the moon since Neil Armstrong's first steps in 1969?
Chelsea, that's a great question. As many of you know, we haven't sent humans back to the moon since the last of the Apollo missions, Apollo 17, but we have been making progress on that goal, and we've been doing it in a number of ways. One is sending robotic missions to the moon to learn about the conditions there in different places, in places we haven't explored, to learn about the resources available on the moon and other scientific opportunities that might be there. And then the other way that we've been doing it is in technology development. So designing the life support systems that can sustain us for long periods of time, for a permanent presence on the moon, and other long duration human research missions that we've been conducting, indeed some that Nick and I are even participating in right now. So we have been making strides back, and it's an exciting time to finally be putting all that into work and culminating it into our return to the moon in 2024.
Okay, thank you.
Speak nice and loud.
Hi, my name is Esmelin, and my question is, why do you feel it is important to continue to research and discover space?
You know, so we've been on the space station continually. It's been there's been a human presence on the space station for almost 20 years now. So that's 20 years, 2 decades of a history of scientific exploration. This is the one place where we can do or we can address the questions that have to do with science, where we can take gravity out of the equation, where we can remove it, and we can see what are the other things that happen when gravity, such a strong force, doesn't dominate everything around us. And it's surprising what we discover. We discover that our bodies change in so many different ways, whether it's bones and muscles and how they develop or not develop, or whether it's just in our DNA and gene expression. We find that plants grow differently, and we have to come up with new technologies to figure out how plants can grow better up here. We find that materials behave differently, and we've discovered new materials. We discover new ways to develop drugs and figure out how to harness the power of that exploration that we've got up here, how to harness that and then turn it into, more importantly, benefits for everyone down on the ground. Just because we're up here in space doing research doesn't mean that the objective of what we're trying to discover isn't intended to help everyone down on the ground. We're trying to continue to explore and build humanity's knowledge of itself and the universe around it.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Matthew, and my question is, what mental challenges do you face before, during, and after your time in space?
Thanks for the question, Matthew. I would say that it does vary between before, during, and after the mission. Now, I can't actually speak to after the mission yet. Nick and I are both rookies, but we can certainly tell you about preparing to come to space and so far our time in space. In terms of the training to get here, I would say the biggest mental challenge is handling the sheer amount of things that you're expected to know and master and perform on and actually exhibit your mastery of things. At the beginning of training, it seems like an insurmountable task, like there's no way you're going to possibly get through it all. And so the mental challenge is, how do you chip away at that and keep your mentality up, keep being excited, keep pushing, keep that grit, especially when you encounter things that are challenging and even failures. So that was a big mental challenge of training, is just recognizing that step by step you will get to the goal that you're after, and you will eventually find yourself on a launch pad in a rocket. And then we come to the mental challenge of being on board. And I think some of the things that we encounter here are time away from our friends and family. So we're not necessarily around our support network. We utilize a lot of keeping in touch with our friends and family that way. And also the other way that I think about is staying vigilant. And there's ties into even law enforcement there. We train for the worst days, knowing that most days we aren't going to have to rely on that training that's so important, but we do have to stay vigilant, and we have to know that that training is something we have to keep fresh and always have in the back of our minds for when the day comes that we do need it.
Thank you. So my second question is, was being an astronaut your first choice as a career?
I think it's safe to say that everybody that's part of the astronaut corps now started as something else, and it's from many different walks of life, whether it's in military, a pilot, an engineer, a doctor, a scientist. We come from all different types of backgrounds, and in those individual backgrounds, we've proven that we have the ability to be successful, that we're competent. But I think more importantly that we're very good team players, we're very good team members, and we do well in pressure situations where we have to work closely with other people. And based on that past history of success, that enables us to prove to NASA when they're making selections that you have what it takes, because what it takes is really the ability to interact together in a close environment like this, and to work through challenging situations, and to be able to come out the other end successful on the mission, and successful in your human relationships, your human interactions as you go through that. You know, can you make friends and maintain friendships? It's simple things like that.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kayla Covens, and my question is, if you could travel to any planet, which planet would you go to and why?
This is a great question. Oftentimes I say, the first thing I say is I would go to Mars. And that's because that's kind of the next step that NASA would be looking to after we go back to the moon. And I would pick Mars because I think it's the place where we have the most likelihood of answering a really exciting question that faces us right now, which is whether or not we're unique in having life on Earth. Has life existed on other planets in the past or even now? And so that's why I would choose Mars. But I also have to say Earth is pretty high up on the list as well.
Hi, my name is Kiana, and my first question is, how has space technology evolved from the first moon landing?
So the one constant in all of the changes that have happened in the space program is our continual push to push the boundaries of what we don't know, to push the boundaries of what we know, to push the boundaries of the technologies and what they're capable of doing. So I mentioned before, we've been up here for about 2 decades on the space station doing research, doing technology demonstrations, and every time we take another bite at that apple, another iteration, we're continuing to push what we think is achievable with the technology. And so to say what has changed, it's easiest to just answer everything has changed. The hardware and the technologies that are going to put us back on the surface of the moon are not the same as the technologies that we used back in 1969. But if you trace all the way back, you can see the footprints that we've been laying down for the last 50 years. And it's all based on everybody's contributions to continually push a little bit further forward and expand that boundary of what we know and what we don't know. And that's how we're going to achieve success 5 years from now.
Thank you. And my second question is, what is the difference between microgravity and zero gravity?
That is a great question that we get all the time. So the reason that we don't refer to our time up here as zero gravity is because gravity is a force that exists from any mass. So any mass generates a gravitational pull. The difference of what we're experiencing is that we are in essentially free fall. We are accelerating down towards the Earth because of Earth's gravity at the same rate as our surroundings. So it appears like microgravity, and like I can just lift Nick up because he's completely weightless. But that's not zero gravity because we are still in Earth's gravity. In fact, we actually experience about 90% of the same gravity that you all are experiencing on the surface of the Earth. The difference is our surroundings are just falling at the same rate. Now, how come we never actually reach Earth? Well, we're moving so fast that we are actually falling around the Earth. So as we fall down or accelerate around the Earth, because of its gravitational pull, the Earth sort of, you can imagine, falls away from us because it's, obviously a big sphere. So we're just falling around the Earth in the same gravitational field as you all are, and we call it microgravity because it's like being weightless.
Hi, my name is Lynette Moya, and my question is, what's the biggest surprise you encountered after leaving Earth?
The biggest surprise. So one of the biggest surprises is that the personal experience that you have in the way that your body changes, things that you've always taken for granted. I got up here and within the first couple weeks, I grew 2 inches because my spine expanded. The calluses on the bottoms of my feet slowly have gone away. And now I have calluses on the top of my big toe because I'm always using my big toe to hold me down just like I am right now. All of these things have changed, and so that personal experience, the feeling that I have in my head of all the fluid pressure that's built because my heart isn't fighting against gravity as it's trying to pump blood into my head. All of those things that have changed individually for me have been surprising because it's different for everybody, and that's kind of that personal experience that you have to just be there and experience for yourself. But I think one of the most breathtaking things that when you first see it, it's this deeply emotional and moving experience is just seeing the Earth from space, and the beauty of it, the scale of it, the perspective that you get is something that it is impactful at a level that's hard to explain.
Hello, nice to meet you. My name is Yolani, and my question to you is, how do you stay healthy in space? Do you exercise?
Thanks for the question, Yolani. Yes, we do. In fact, we are mandated to exercise 2 hours every single day. And that includes resistance training, what you might call weightlifting on Earth. And it also includes cardiovascular. And for that, we do either running on a treadmill or exercising on an exercise bike. The really neat thing about our resistance training is that since we can't just lift weights to strengthen our muscles like you do on the ground, we have a really specialized piece of equipment that's like a marvel of engineering in and of itself that uses vacuum chambers to create a resistance for us to pull against. And using that machine, we can recreate almost every standard exercise that you know of from a gym. So we do keep in shape. It's a great way not only to keep physically fit and to fight the bone and muscle loss that happens naturally in microgravity, but it also is a great way to stay mentally fit and to, spend time, group workouts even we do up here. So we're happy, just like on Earth, that we get to work out here in space.
Hi, my name is Douglas, and my question is, how does your body adapt to different changes from living on Earth to living in space?
Yeah, so to talk specifically about one of those adaptations, it's one that is, more common. You hear a lot of people talk about muscle and bone, but I'll talk about fluid shift as one that is a big one that is a little harder to understand. So being in space kind of feels like you're standing on your head, because your heart is always, when you're on the ground, is pumping a little bit harder to try to keep the blood going to your head because it has to fight gravity. But when you get up here and everything's falling together in microgravity, then the pressure builds up in your head, and so you have a little bit higher pressure. So there's a couple ways that your body adapts to that. Part of it is you always kind of have a stuffy feeling in your head. So if you ever want to feel what it's like to be in space, stand on your head for 30 seconds, and you'll feel this little stuffiness that kind of comes with being up here. The second thing that can happen is that changes the pressure that is around the brain, that the blood that's supplied to the brain, all that pressure changes. And so we're studying right now what kind of changes that might cause. One of the things that we know that happens to a significant number of astronauts is our vision changes. And how that's actually happening, we're still trying to figure out. But we do know that some of that pressure change is somehow ending up changing our vision. And so we're part of an experiment where they're looking at our eyes and how they change while we're up here.
Hello, my name is Janelli, and my question is, on average, how long does it take to reach outer space and the moon?
Well, we've conferred, and we seem to both remember that to get to the moon, it takes about 3.5 days, 3 days and change. And obviously, that was what the astronauts in the Apollo days in the late 1960s and early 1970s encountered. For us, just reaching low Earth orbit, which is around 250 miles up, it only takes about 8.5 minutes. Now, that's not how long it takes to actually rendezvous with the station. That's just how long it takes to actually achieve orbit. Then we've got a couple more hours after that of sequencing our orbit to meet the space station, to slowly rendezvous and come into close proximity, and eventually to dock. So it's about 8.5 minutes on top of a rocket, 6 hours or so doing rendezvous, orbiting the Earth and rendezvousing with station. And if you want to go all the way to the moon, you've got to wait a few days.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event.
Thank you to all the participants from the New York Police Department. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.